special envoys or by the State Department. The fact that
okay, Route 16
did the negotiations mean there's a new channel.
You visited North Korea in 2013, most recently with a delegation of business leaders. And at the time, you also sought the release of Kenneth Bay. That effort wasn't successful. Why, in retrospect, do you think it didn't work?
Well, there was a very high level of tension at the time, and we were not acting in an official capacity. Kim Jong-un, the new leader, was just coming into power, and so he was uncertain about a lot of these issues. The good news in this release is that he authorized what happened. There's no way a decision like this would have happened without Kim Jong-un, and that's a good sign. It means he wants to have a dialogue. And secondly, what I believe is important about this is that maybe the North Koreans have realized that all of this harsh rhetoric, shooting missiles, nuclear detonations, tension has not worked. They still need food, fuel, they're desperately poor, and maybe this means they're ready to engage in a dialogue with South Korea, with us, with China, where in exchange for them reducing their nuclear weapons in their arsenal, they get some kind of food, energy assistance, sanctions relief. It could be a little bit of a breakthrough.
You know as well as anyone that North Korea is unpredictable. Do you suspect that this is actually a real opening, or is this just part of a game that North Korea is playing to try to perhaps convince the West that they're ready to cooperate?
North Korea is going to continue to be unpredictable, but this is a good sign. Here's why. This is the second instance in a row where North Korea has not placed serious conditions on the release of a prisoner. In the past, they've demanded all kinds of concessions to release prisoners. This time, Kim Jong-un made this decision and appears to be sending a sort of a separate signal. Hey, you know, let's see where talks might go. I'm ready to reduce tensions. And so I believe we should take advantage of this and get our South Korean, Chinese, Russian, the six-party countries to re-engage North Korea.
Bill Richardson is a former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations and the former governor of New Mexico. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you, Rachel.
On this day, 25 years ago, the wall that separated East and West Germany came down. After the collapse of the Berlin Wall, people across Eastern Europe took to the streets to demand the end of communist rule. It's easy to look at the wall now and see a clear and powerful symbol of the division between democracy and repression, an iron curtain made of stone. But who would have thought that weeks after the wall fell, and for years that followed, an American TV star would come to personify freedom, democracy, and everything good in the world?
I was a guy having to do a show called Night Rider who happened to sing a song called Looking for Freedom.
We spoke with the man of that moment, David Hasselhoff, and asked him how he came to sing an unforgettable concert in Berlin on New Year's Eve back in 1989.
When running in June some 20 years ago, I was born a rich man's son.
David Hasselhoff was a certified heartthrob in the States, but he built his European reputation on a pop song. We'll let him explain.
I had been behind the wall at least 8 or 9 times since 1987 when I first went over to kind of further my music career with a Night Rider car. I shipped a Night Rider car over to Austria and then to Germany, figuring if they wouldn't come and see me, they'd come and see the car. So it seemed to work. I got hit big with a single, and they invited me to sing, and I said, only if I can sing on the wall, and they said yes. And I went, oh my God.
Officials from East and West Germany made Hasselhoff the star of the New Year's celebration, hoisting him above the crowd on a crane. Hasselhoff was decked out in this amazing jacket with a bunch of battery-powered flashing lights. And then, on the top of the wall, the Brandenburg Gate behind him, Hasselhoff sang.
I've been looking for freedom. I've been looking so long.
Even with the massive crowd singing along, Hasselhoff says he had no idea whether the performance would have any lasting impact until he saw people holding signs thanking him for the fall of the wall.
I didn't know it was a joke or not. I really didn't. And it wasn't a joke. It was like, thank you for the fall of the wall. Thank you for our childhood. And then I found later, like, talking to an East Berlin guy and a West Berlin guy. One guy says, you know, he thinks I'm from East Berlin. He thinks that Looking for Freedom was just a song. West Berlin goes, yeah, it was. It was just a pop song. He goes, no, it wasn't. It was our hymn. It was our anthem. It was our song of hope.
Over the next 2 decades, Hasselhoff balanced his roles as Hollywood star and political celebrity.
I've been back to Berlin probably about 8 or 9 times just this year alone, to save the wall, because they were going to tear down the last piece of the wall. So I went back on my own and just walked the wall. Just to bring awareness that you can't tear this down. And 10,000 people turned out, so I sang Looking for Freedom, went through a bullhorn. Everyone was quite excited that I came, and I felt pretty moved that anybody showed up 25 years later.
And of course, I had to ask the question, do you mind if you can just one bar of the chorus?
I've been looking for freedom. I've been looking so long. I've been looking for freedom. Still the search goes on.
Now we are on Broadway.
And of course, Hasselhoff is right. The wall itself, the pieces of it, have come to be treasured souvenirs of that important moment in world history.
I have about 350 pieces of the wall. We chopped them all down that night. And I brought them back and I gave them all to the cast and crew of Baywatch on a plaque. It says November 9th, 1989, a little piece of freedom. And the rest are in my house.
Hasselhoff wasn't the only person who brought a pickaxe to the wall. So did some young sightseers. In 1990, before reunification, Amy Oliva was spending the summer before 8th grade visiting her best friend who had moved to Germany.
We kind of went crazy and chopped off probably 15 pounds, which we regretted as we carried those around Berlin for the day.
That same year, Hillary Whiteley was just 6 years old and living in Germany. She says one of her first memories is hacking at the concrete wall with her brother.
My brother kept singing this song, and it goes, there's a place in France where the naked ladies dance, and a hole in the wall where the men can see it all. And for some reason that stuck in my mind.
People like Amy and Hillary were called wall woodpeckers, people who chipped off pieces of the wall, often with rented hammers and picks. Whiteley and her family brought back the pieces that she had chipped off with her brother, and her mom decided they didn't actually belong in the house.
She just thought that this concrete was just a symbol of everything that had transpired that was not nice in the past.
So she got rid of them.
So she instead decided to bury them in our backyard.
And Amy Oliva, when she got back from Germany, she started 8th grade and took a semester of shop class. One of her assignments was to make a clock.
People, could decorate it any way they wanted, and people did different things with the numbers. And I thought, I've got these neat little pieces of the Berlin Wall. So I picked out my best pieces with the graffiti, clearly on them, and glued them on at the 12, 3, 6, and 9, and I called it the Berlin Wall Clock. So my shop teacher just thought that was terrific, and it's still proudly hanging in my parents' house.
But you didn't have to be in Berlin at that time to get your hands on a piece of history.
This is Massachusetts Avenue,
I'm 24 years
and
old.
we are in Arlington.
My wall came into my possession through a pre-order for the collector's edition of a game called World in Conflict. And the
Now we're
centerpiece
turning
of it was
into
a
Lake
certified,
Street.
authenticated piece of the Berlin Wall.
He really hopes it's not a fake.
I know that a lot of these things are fake, that it could be entirely possible someone whacked off a chunk of a wall in Stuttgart or something and labeled it, but hopefully that's not the case.
Because to own a piece of history, or even to just believe that you do, is to feel a kind of connection to the people who actually changed it. However you came by it, we want to know if you have a piece of the Berlin Wall. Tweet us a picture. I'm at RachelNPR. And the music you're hearing right now is an audio souvenir from November of 1989, when Mstislav Rostropovich offered this impromptu cello performance in front of the wall. And you're listening to NPR News. This is 90.9 WBUR. Tune in tonight at 8 o'clock for Keystone XL Pipeline and International Town Hall. Studio audiences in Lincoln, Nebraska and Calgary discuss how the oil sands industry and the building of the Keystone XL Pipeline directly affects their lives.
That's the Keystone XL Pipeline and International Town Hall, tonight at 8 on
And
90.9
we are
WBUR, Boston's NPR news
on
station.
Lake Street.
We're funded by you, our listeners, and by your local Boston Mercedes-Benz dealers, offering all-wheel drive sedans and SUVs during their winter event going on now. More at mbUSA.com.